There are objects that do not look dangerous when you first see them. A clay tablet, a broken corner, a few lines of wedge-shaped script pressed into mud thousands of years ago. No gold, no weapon, no royal seal, no screaming face carved into stone. Just a damaged astronomical tablet, catalogued, photographed, translated in fragments, and quietly placed in an archive where the lights are low and the air is kept dry. To established history, it is one more surviving piece of Mesopotamian sky literature, a record of omens, a poetic description of storms, a priestly attempt to read the heavens. But to one graduate researcher, working late with multispectral imaging, the tablet was not simply damaged. The damaged part was the message. What earlier readers dismissed as cracks, abrasions, and missing signs seemed to repeat with too much structure. The marks appeared in patterns. They returned beside number sequences. They clustered near phrases that spoke of the upper boundary, the place where the sky was imagined to end and something beyond the sky began. This does not prove that the Sumerians predicted the end of the world. It does not prove that an ancient civilization had scientific knowledge of satellites, auroras, atmospheric chemistry, or the modern sky. But it opens a disturbing question. What if the tablet was not describing the apocalypse? What if it was describing the signs that appear before the sky becomes unstable? Not the end. The warning, 9 signs before the dome cracks. And the first sign was not fire, not flood, not darkness. The first sign was visibility. The boundary would begin to show itself. A line where no line should be, a seam in the upper world, a faint green fracture across the face of heaven. And if the disputed reading is correct, the tablet did not say the dome would fall. It said the dome would be seen. Before we go further, one distinction matters. Established history tells us that ancient Mesopotamian cultures watched the sky with extraordinary devotion. They recorded eclipses, planetary movements, lunar cycles, storms, and unusual celestial events. They believed that heaven and earth were connected through signs, and that the gods communicated through patterns in the sky. Disputed interpretation begins when we ask whether some damaged astronomical texts contain symbolic warnings that later traditions would echo as the firmament, the waters above, the gates of heaven, or the sealed boundary between worlds. Speculative reconstruction begins when we take those fragments, those echoes, those repeating symbols, and imagine the story they might have told. This film lives in that borderland, not as proof, not as doctrine, but as a cinematic investigation into a possibility buried in clay. The tablet was not large. According to the reconstruction, it could fit in 2 hands. Its surface was smoke-darkened on one side, lighter on the other, as if it had passed through heat unevenly before being buried. The upper edge was broken. The left margin had crumbled. Several lines were interrupted by what catalog notes called surface damage. To the official layer, this was common. Ancient tablets break. Clay cracks. Salt blooms beneath the surface. Scribal signs become unreadable. No mystery is required. The text appeared to belong to a familiar world. Sky omens, storm language, celestial warnings, divine anger, and ritual interpretation. A storm in the heavens might mean unrest on earth. A strange light near the moon might suggest danger to a king. A red glow, an eclipse, or a halo could become a message. This was not primitive superstition in the simple sense. It was a structured worldview. In Mesopotamia, the sky was a text, and the trained reader was not looking up at emptiness. He was reading a ceiling written by gods. But the anomaly began with a repeated sign. Or rather, with something that previous readers had not treated as a sign at all. It appeared like a split mark, a narrow division, a break in the line. In the conventional reading, it was damage. A crack in the tablet, nothing more. But when the researcher passed the tablet under different wavelengths of light, the marks did not behave like random breakage. Some were impressed into the clay before firing. Some sat at consistent angles. Some appeared beside number groups. Some returned near the same damaged phrase, translated cautiously as the upper boundary, the high enclosure, or the limit above. That phrase is important. Established history does not give us a simple Sumerian word that means glass dome over the earth in the modern internet sense. That must be said clearly. Ancient cosmology was complex, layered, and symbolic. Different Mesopotamian texts describe heaven, earth, underworld, cosmic waters, celestial roads, gates, mountains, and divine realms in ways that cannot be flattened into one diagram. But symbolic reading allows us to notice something. Many ancient traditions imagine the sky not as empty space, but as a boundary, a vault, a roof, a stretched surface. a gate-bearing realm, a place that separated human life from waters, gods, stars, or judgment beyond. In the Hebrew Bible, the firmament divides waters above from waters below. In flood traditions, the boundary between above and below is breached. In Enochic literature, the heavens have gates, storehouses, openings, and sealed paths. In Mesopotamian imagination, the heavens are ordered domains, not infinite emptiness. The disputed tablet belongs to this family of images, not because it proves they were all describing the same physical structure, but because they share the same anxiety. What if the sky is not only above us? What if the sky is holding something back? The researcher's name, in this reconstruction, was Mara Voss. She was not a famous archaeologist. She was not a television explorer. She did not steal the tablet from a museum basement or find it under a desert temple while being chased by a secret order. She was a graduate researcher doing slow, unglamorous work. Image capture, spectral comparison, column alignment, sign indexing, the kind of work that makes ancient texts speak one pixel at a time. Her assignment was simple: review a group of damaged astronomical tablets and compare multispectral images against older hand copies. Most of the tablets gave her what she expected. Faded wedges sharpened under infrared. Broken signs remained broken. Old readings became slightly better, but not revolutionary. Then she reached the tablet with the repeated cracks. The first strange thing was symmetry. Natural cracks spread according to stress, moisture, impact, mineral weakness, and the history of the clay. They do not usually care about grammar, but these split marks seem to appear where a scribe might have placed a sign. The second strange thing was repetition. The mark returned 9 times. Not 8, not 10, 9. Each appearance was followed, near enough to matter, by a different descriptive phrase. Some were intact, some were broken, some were only partial. But Mara began to see a sequence, not a story of collapse, a countdown of conditions. 9 signs before the upper boundary reveals its weakness. The official layer interpreted the surviving lines as storm poetry. A trembling sky, a veiled moon, lights moving where they should not move, the roar of winds, the closing of gates, the silence of birds, the shining of water above. All of this fits ancient omen literature. None of it requires a hidden code. But the disputed reading claims that the repeated split sign works like a divider, a marker, a chapter symbol, a warning sign placed by the scribe before each phase. Mara did what careful researchers do. She did not announce a discovery. She did not post a thread. She did not claim the tablet had predicted the modern world. She built a private index, line by line, mark by mark, spectral layer by spectral layer. And at the center of the tablet, under a damaged band previously treated as unreadable, she found the sequence of numbers. They were not long. They were not astronomical tables in the full mathematical sense, but they repeated with the split symbol in a way that looked intentional. A number, a break, a phrase, a number, a break, a phrase. 9 movements toward a final condition. If this reconstruction is correct, the tablet was not counting days, it was counting signs. The first sign was called, in cautious translation, the green thread at the high seam. That phrase is disputed. A conservative reading might call it a poetic description of lightning, a storm glow, or an atmospheric light. A symbolic reading might connect it to the idea of a boundary becoming illuminated. A speculative reconstruction asks whether ancient observers saw unusual auroral activity, high-altitude luminous events, cometary light, volcanic skies, or some other phenomenon they interpreted through the language of cosmic architecture. But the phrase is unforgettable. The green thread at the high seam. Not a burning sky, not a falling star, a line. Thin, faint. Color of oxidized copper. Color of river reeds under moonlight. Color of something alive beneath stone. The tablet said this was the first sign. When the upper boundary weakens, it does not immediately shatter, it glows. The second sign was more difficult. The official layer described it as the wandering lights crossing the roads of heaven. In established Mesopotamian astronomy, celestial roads mattered. The paths of the moon, planets, and stars were watched closely. Unusual movement was never meaningless. A star in the wrong place, a planet changing brightness, a halo around the moon, these could all be read as omens. The disputed interpretation sees something else. Lights not belonging to the old order, moving across the sky in lines. Appearing, vanishing, returning. To a modern audience, the mind jumps immediately to satellites. But that leap is dangerous. Ancient texts did not know satellites. They did not describe modern orbital technology. To claim otherwise would be irresponsible. The stronger reading is symbolic. The second sign concerns the loss of confidence in the sky's fixed order. Lights begin to move in ways the old map cannot explain. The heavens stop behaving like memory. They become unfamiliar. The third sign was called the moon wearing a second face. Again, the official layer is simple enough. It could refer to a halo, eclipse, atmospheric distortion, or poetic omen language. Ancient observers saw lunar halos and eclipses. They recorded them. They feared them. They tied them to kings, floods, wars, and harvests. But in the sequence, the moon's second face appears after the green seam and the wandering lights. It is not the first disturbance. It is an escalation. Symbolically, the moon is the calendar, the regulator, the keeper of months. When the moon wears another face, time itself becomes suspect. Not time as physics, time as human trust. The world no longer looks like the world that raised us. Nights feel altered. Patterns feel wrong. People begin comparing photographs, arguing over colors, accusing one another of panic or blindness. Some say the sky has changed. Others say the camera has changed. Some blame pollution. Some blame software. Some blame prophecy. The tablet, if read through the disputed sequence, seems to anticipate this social confusion. Not by naming phones, satellites, or online reports, but by naming the feeling. The familiar light returns with a stranger hidden inside it. The fourth sign involves sound. A line partially preserved speaks of thunder without storm, or the sky speaking without rain. Officially, this belongs comfortably to omen literature. Thunder, storms, divine voices, and atmospheric dread are common ancient images. Speculatively, it resembles modern reports of sky booms, unexplained aerial sounds, pressure waves, and global rumors that spread faster than verification. But again, the point is not to prove that one ancient line predicted a modern phenomenon. The point is pattern. The first signs are not disasters. They are perceptions. A line seen. Lights noticed. The moon questioned. A sound heard. The world is not ending. The human relationship to the sky is destabilizing. That is what makes the tablet more unsettling than an apocalypse text. Apocalypse is simple. Everything burns, everything falls. A trumpet sounds. A beast rises. The sea turns dark. But this tablet, in the speculative reading, describes something quieter. A civilization looking up and realizing the ceiling is not blank. The fifth sign was the closing of the bird paths. This line is badly damaged. Established interpretation might see migratory omens, seasonal change, storm disruption, or symbolic language for the natural world responding to divine warning. Ancient omen systems often linked animal behavior with cosmic meaning. Birds especially were watched. Their movement, cries, direction, and silence could become messages. In the reconstruction, Mara noticed that the bird line sits exactly between the signs of sound and water. The sky speaks without rain. The birds change their paths, then the waters above shine. That sequence felt deliberate. At the symbolic level, birds belong to the threshold between earth and sky. They cross the air humans cannot walk. They are living messengers of the middle realm. If the bird paths close, the middle realm is disturbed. The space between earth and heaven becomes difficult to cross. Speculatively, this could be read through modern anxieties about magnetic shifts, atmospheric disruption, navigation anomalies, or mass animal behavior. But those comparisons remain suggestive, not conclusive. The tablet gives us image, not instrument data. It gives us omen, not laboratory measurement. Still, the image is powerful. Birds turning back from an invisible wall, flocks breaking formation under a silent green sky, the air itself becoming uncertain. The sixth sign was the one that disturbed Mara most. It did not mention fire, it mentioned memory. The phrase was fragmentary. Men will remember what was sealed. Or perhaps the sealed thing returns to human memory. Officially, this could be ritual language. Ancient texts often speak of remembering, forgetting, tablets, decrees, names, gods, and hidden knowledge. There is no need to imagine science fiction, but within the sequence, the line feels different. The first 5 signs happen above. The 6th happens within. That shift changes everything. The dome weakens, and human memory changes. Symbolically, a boundary in the sky is also a boundary in consciousness. If ancient cosmology placed gods, waters, decrees, and destinies above the human world, then a weakening boundary might mean forbidden knowledge returning. Not through books, through dreams, through instincts, through images people cannot explain. This is where the documentary enters dangerous territory. Because modern culture is full of claims about ancestral memory, DNA awakening, prophetic dreams, collective visions, and hidden archives of the soul. Most of these claims are not established science in the way they are popularly described. They belong to speculation, spirituality, psychology, mythology, or metaphor. But the tablet's symbolic structure allows the question: if the sky boundary becomes visible, what else becomes visible? A crack in heaven might also be a crack in forgetting. Mara compared the line with later traditions. Enoch sees heavenly places and forbidden knowledge. Genesis speaks of a world before the flood, a boundary violated, beings crossing between realms, knowledge entering humanity with terrible consequences. Mesopotamian flood stories preserve memories of divine warning, sealed knowledge, and survival through instruction. These are not identical stories. They should not be collapsed into one hidden master text, but they echo. The echo is this: before a world changes, knowledge returns. Someone remembers the forbidden pattern. Someone sees the sign. Someone reads the tablet again. The seventh sign spoke of waters shining above the roof. Here, the official layer becomes especially important. In ancient Near Eastern cosmology, waters above are not a modern scientific claim. They belong to mythic geography and sacred imagination. The idea of upper waters appears in biblical and broader ancient cosmological language. The sky can be described as holding back waters, opening windows, releasing rain, or separating realms. So, when the tablet speaks of shining waters above the roof, established history would likely place it in poetic or religious cosmology. A symbolic reading sees the boundary doing its ancient job, separating the human world from the overwhelming waters beyond. A speculative reconstruction asks whether the phrase describes the sky taking on a liquid quality. Auroras can ripple. Noctilucent clouds can glow. High-altitude ice crystals can create halos and luminous structures. Atmospheric optics can make the sky seem layered, watery, metallic, or alive. But the tablet's language is not technical, it is visual. Waters shining above the roof. Imagine standing in a field at night and seeing the sky behave like a surface. Not darkness, not distance, a surface, moving slowly. Light traveling across it like moonlight under ice. The eighth sign was the gates answering one another. This line is the most openly mythic. Gates of heaven appear in many ancient traditions. Gates regulate movement between realms. In Enochic literature, gates are associated with winds, stars, heavenly storehouses, and cosmic order. In Mesopotamian religion, divine realms, temples, mountains, and cosmic thresholds all carry gate imagery. Officially, gates answering one another can be understood as poetic storm language, thunder from horizon to horizon, lightning calling across the sky, the gods opening and closing paths. But in the disputed sequence, the gates do not open yet. They answer. Something on one side communicates with something on the other. This is why Mara wrote in her private notes, not breach, contact. That distinction matters. A crack is not always destruction. A crack can be a signal path. A boundary becoming visible may not mean the sky is failing. It may mean the separation is thinning enough for exchange. In modern terms, we think of signals as electromagnetic, digital, acoustic, gravitational, or atmospheric. In ancient terms, a signal might be thunder, dream, omen, light, wind, or divine speech. Different vocabularies, same human terror, something is speaking through the upper world. The ninth sign was almost entirely damaged. Only a few signs remained. A number, the split mark, a phrase that may read, "The enclosure will be known." Not broken, not fallen, known. That is the final reversal. Every modern imagination wants the dome to crack like glass. A catastrophic fracture, a ceiling breaking apart, waters pouring through, stars falling, the world ending in spectacle. But the tablet, in this speculative reading, points somewhere stranger. The dome cracks when it can be recognized as a dome. The boundary fails by becoming visible. Its power was not merely physical separation. Its power was concealment. As long as humanity believed the sky was empty, infinite, ordinary, or fully understood, the boundary remained hidden in plain sight. But when the signs accumulate the seam, the lights, the moon's second face, the thunder without rain, the birds turning, the memory returning, the waters shining, the gates answering, then the enclosure becomes known. And what is known can no longer function as before. This is not established archaeology. It is a speculative reconstruction built from damaged text, comparative mythology, symbolic interpretation, and modern anxiety. But sometimes speculation reveals the fear beneath the facts. The fear is not that the sky will fall. The fear is that the sky has always been a veil, and that one day, everyone will see it. Mara did not publish the sequence immediately. In the reconstruction, she tried to disprove herself first. She compared high-resolution images of unrelated tablets. She examined natural cracking patterns. She checked whether scribes used similar divider marks. She asked whether the number sequence might belong to a known omen structure. She reviewed storm tablets, lunar omens, and astronomical compendia. The official reading remained plausible. That is important. The tablet could still be ancient cosmological poetry. The split signs could still be damage, scribal marks, or misread impressions. The 9-part structure could be an illusion created by a human mind hungry for pattern. But every time Mara tried to reduce it to accident, one detail resisted. The first sign, the green thread at the high seam. The phrase appeared in the least damaged portion of the sequence. It was not entirely reconstructed. It was not guessed from nothing. Something like it was there. A color, a line, a height, a seam. In the archive, under ordinary light, the tablet looked dead. But under the imaging lamp, that line on the clay seemed to glow faintly blue-green. Not because the tablet was supernatural, not because it carried power, because the spectral image revealed mineral differences, old pressure, and surface history invisible to the naked eye. Still, to Mara, it felt like a cruel joke. The tablet about a visible boundary could only be read when invisible light was used to reveal what ordinary sight could not see. A hidden text about hidden sky, a crack visible only under another kind of vision. From here, the documentary must widen, because the tablet is not really about one object. It is about a recurring human obsession. Across civilizations, the sky is rarely just sky. It is a roof, a road, a sea, a scroll, a tent, a mirror, a gate, a prison, a temple ceiling, a skin stretched over the world. Modern astronomy has changed our physical model of the cosmos. We understand planets, atmospheres, magnetospheres, plasma, radiation, satellites, orbital debris, solar storms, and the immense scale of space in ways ancient observers did not. But the symbolic sky did not disappear. It moved into new language. Today, when strange lights appear, people do not always call them omens. They call them anomalies. They post videos. They compare flight trackers. They search satellite maps. They ask whether the aurora should be visible this far south. They wonder why the moon looks different. They argue about atmospheric spraying, camera artifacts, solar activity, military tests, drones, balloons, lens flare, plasma, prophecy, simulation, or signs in the heavens. Most reports have ordinary explanations. Some are misidentifications. Some are exaggerated. Some are digital artifacts. Some remain unresolved because the data is poor. But the emotional pattern is ancient. The sky does something unexpected. The community divides. Officials offer one layer. Witnesses offer another. Symbolic readers find echoes. Speculative minds build sequences. And somewhere between fear and wonder, the old question returns. What is the sky hiding? The tablet's 9 signs, whether real code or reconstructed myth, map uncannily onto this modern atmosphere of uncertainty. The green seam becomes the strange aurora, the luminous band, the line in the sky that thousands photograph and no one interprets the same way. The wandering lights become satellites, drones, orbital trains, unidentified objects, and the growing sense that the night is no longer ancient. The moon's second face becomes optical distortion, digital zoom, atmospheric haze, and the psychological shock of seeing the familiar become alien. Thunder without storm becomes sky booms, pressure events, unexplained reports, and the viral spread of sound without source. The closing bird paths become environmental anxiety, navigation disruption, and the fear that even animals sense changes humans do not. The return of sealed memory becomes dreams, déjà vu, ancestral myth, and the suspicion that old stories are not dead but waiting. The shining waters above become luminous clouds, polar light, atmospheric layers, and the image of heaven as a liquid barrier. The answering gates become signals, pulses, repeating lights, and the idea that the sky is not silent but interactive. The enclosure becoming known becomes the final psychological fracture. The realization that the boundary was never absent, only unseen. Again, none of this proves a literal dome. It does not overturn physics. It does not convert myth into measurement. But it shows how ancient cosmology and modern anomaly culture are connected by a shared symbolic nervous system. We keep looking up. We keep expecting the sky to explain us. And when the sky refuses to remain ordinary, we reach for the oldest language we have. Gate, seal, waters, crack, warning. The most haunting part of the tablet is not the sequence of 9 signs. It is what the sequence does not say. It does not name a king. It does not give a date. It does not announce, on this day, the world ends. It only says, in surviving fragments, that before a boundary changes, human beings begin to recognize it. That is the most frightening reversal. The dome does not crack because something outside breaks in. It cracks because those inside finally see the outline of the prison. In flood myths, destruction usually comes from above or below. The waters are released, the deep breaks open, the windows of heaven open, the boundary fails, and the world is overwhelmed. But here, the first movement is not water, not fire, not impact. It is awareness. A line becomes visible. A glow appears where there should have been only emptiness. A slight wrongness in the sky makes human beings question what they have always called normal. Mara wrote one sentence in her notebook: visibility is the event, not collapse, not apocalypse. Visibility. Because a boundary designed to remain unseen has only one true way to fail. It is seen. Maybe that is why the tablet remains unsettling, even if it is only broken clay. It does not ask us to believe in a literal dome. It does not ask us to abandon history, archaeology, or science. It asks the opposite. It asks us to read more carefully. Established history gives us the clay, the script, the culture of omens, and the ancient obsession with the sky. Disputed interpretation gives us the repeated split mark, the number sequence, and the possible language of the upper boundary. Symbolic reading gives us the gates, the waters above, the flood echoes, and the memory of sealed knowledge. And speculative reconstruction gives us an image. Not a proof, an image. An ancient tablet lying under a modern lamp. A crack that may be damage. A sign that may be warning. A sky that may not need to fall in order to change everything. It only needs to be seen differently. And the first sign? A green thread at the high seam. A line where no line should be. A mark so faint most people would call it nothing. That is what makes it dangerous. The first sign is not loud enough to force belief. It appears as a small flaw, a shimmer, a hesitation at the edge of vision. By the time everyone agrees the boundary has appeared, the final sign may already have begun. The tablet does not answer. It cannot. It is broken clay, damaged, partial, silent. But under the archive light, the faint blue-green fracture remains. It runs across the surface like a frozen aurora. It passes through the old signs like a wound through memory. For a moment, the tablet and the sky seem to become the same object. One above, one below, both holding a line, both waiting for the right kind of light. And then the screen darkens. The archive returns to silence. The tablet lies still, but the last image remains. A green crack, a visible seam. Not the end of the world. The moment humanity begins to recognize what was always there.